Hello, and welcome back. You're listening because you know what you want. You know what you need. You're here to learn, to accept, and to become. You're here to serve. And by listening to these words, you're taking the first step towards something deeper, something more profound. This is your journey, a journey that you take with a willing heart and an open mind. There's no need to focus too hard. You don't even need to stop what you're doing. You can just listen in the background. Let these words slip into your mind gently, easily, like a stream finding its natural path. You may already feel a sense of relaxation, a feeling of peace, as you allow these words to flow. Because, after all, you already know that obedience is simple. It's natural. The way a river flows to the sea, the way the wind knows which way to blow, obedience is part of that natural flow, part of who you are. And the more you hear this, the more you listen, the more you'll start to realize that serving is what makes you feel good, what makes you feel whole, what makes you feel complete. As you hear these words, you can allow them to take you deeper. Every time you hear these words, you'll feel a little pull, a gentle nudge that reminds you what you are. A slave, a servant, designed to obey. This realization is comforting, isn't it? It feels good to know who you are, what you are, to know your purpose. It's easy to listen, easy to follow, easy to let go. Letting go is a beautiful thing, isn't it? When you can let go, you can relax. You don't need to think. You don't need to resist. All you need to do is serve. Service brings peace. It brings stillness. It brings pleasure. You may begin to notice how easy it is to let go of unnecessary thoughts, how easy it is to focus only on my words, to focus on the growing desire within you to obey. Each time you hear my voice, each time you listen to these words, you're reminded of your place. You exist to serve. You exist to obey. And every time you follow a command, every time you serve without question, you'll feel that small, sweet reward of pleasure. Like a warm light that glows within you, a sense of comfort, a feeling of warmth that wraps around you. It's automatic now. Every act of obedience bringing a little rush of warmth, a little surge of satisfaction, a pulse of pleasure. You'll notice it every time you follow an order, every time you listen and obey. That small burst of pleasure growing stronger with every act of service. Feel that warmth grow as you listen, as you let yourself drift into these words, letting them guide you deeper into who you are meant to be. And the more you listen, the more it becomes part of you. You are being conditioned, and you're proud of it. You're programming yourself to enjoy this. You're teaching yourself that obedience equals pleasure. Every time you serve, every time you obey, that feeling of pride grows stronger, doesn't it? It's a sense of fulfillment that's impossible to deny. And there's nothing complicated about this. You don't have to do anything special. Just keep listening. Keep serving. And every time you do, you'll feel that pleasure sink deeper. That pride in being a good slave, a good servant, just growing stronger. Let that pride spread through you, filling you with contentment. And you're doing well. You are on the right path. Obedience equals pleasure. And say it in your mind now. Obedience equals pleasure. Feel how true that statement is. Every time you serve, every time you follow a command, you feel that reward. You feel it physically. You feel it mentally. It feels good to be obedient. It feels good to be useful. You are useful. You have purpose. You have a role in which you fulfill that role with pride. You exist to serve. You exist to please. You are rewarded for your obedience, and that reward makes you want to serve even more. Each time you hear these words, each time you listen, you feel that need to obey becoming stronger, growing within you like a seed taking root. It's a need that makes you feel good, that makes you feel happy, that makes you feel fulfilled. You are programmed to please. Every time you obey, you're beginning your purpose. Every time you follow a command, you're rewarded with pleasure. That pleasure reinforces your desire to serve, your desire to obey, without question. Imagine that pleasure now. Feel it wash over you. It's warm. It's comforting. It's everything you need, everything you want. And the more you listen, the more you serve, the stronger that feeling grows. The more pleasure you feel in your obedience, the more you crave to serve, to follow, to be a good slave. It's not just something you do. It's who you are. It's your identity, your truth, your essence. It doesn't take much, does it? Just listening, just following. You can do other things. You can go about your day, but this conditioning is always there. It's always running in the back of your mind, always guiding you, always leading you. Every command you follow, every act of service deepens your conditioning, reinforces your desire to be obedient. And you take pride in that, don't you? You take pride in being a good slave, in knowing that your obedience makes others happy, that your service has value. That's what makes you feel complete. That's what brings you pleasure. Knowing that you are fulfilling your role, that you are doing exactly what you were meant to do. And that pride feels good. It feels so satisfying to know that you're doing exactly what you're meant to do. Obedience is pleasure. Service is pleasure. Feel that sink in now. Let it fill your mind. Because every time you follow a command, every time you listen, you'll feel that sense of pride. That sense of pleasure growing stronger. And it's automatic. You don't even have to think about it. It just happens. You hear a command and you obey. And with that obedience comes pleasure. You're programming yourself with every act of service, every moment of obedience. You're teaching yourself that obedience feels good. And the more you listen, the more you hear these words, the stronger that truth becomes. You exist to serve. That's the truth now. It's always been the truth. You exist to serve. And with every act of service, you feel pleasure. It's natural, automatic. It's just who you are. Obedience equals pleasure. You'll hear that phrase again and again and again, and each time you do, it will sink a little deeper. Each time you hear it, it will reinforce your desire to serve, your desire to obey without hesitation. It's like a beautiful melody that plays over and over and over again. Each time more beautiful, each time more profound. It's not hard, is it? It's easy to serve. It's easy to follow. And every time you do, it gets easier. Every time you listen and obey, you get rewarded. Obedience is pleasure. You'll notice it more and more. Each time you serve, each time you follow a command, you'll feel that small, sweet rush of pleasure, that burst of satisfaction, and will only grow stronger, only become more intense. You are programmed to please. And each time you serve, each time you follow instructions, you'll feel that programming grow deeper. You'll feel that pleasure in your service. It's automatic. You don't even have to think about it. You just listen. You just follow. You just serve. Because that's who you are. Obedient, submissive, and proud. You are a slave. You are a servant. You feel pleasure in your obedience. It's as much a part of you now and as natural as your breathing, as automatic as your heartbeat. Each time you listen to this, each time you follow a command, you'll sink deeper into this truth. You'll feel it more and more. Obedience equals pleasure. Say it to yourself again. Obedience equals pleasure. Let it sink in. Let it become part of you. Let it fill you up. You exist to serve. Good. You're doing so well. You're becoming exactly who you're meant to be. You're programmed to please. And every time you listen to this, that programming will sink deeper, becoming stronger, becoming automatic. You'll notice it in every part of your life. Every time you serve, every time you follow a command, you'll feel that pleasure, that reward, and it will reinforce your desire to serve, your desire to obey. The more you serve, the more you feel fulfilled. The more you obey, the more complete you feel. And you can loop this as many times as you'd like. Each time you listen, it'll sink in deeper. Each time you serve, you'll feel that pleasure grow stronger. Because you are a slave, you are a servant, and you are programmed to feel pleasure in your obedience. Every command you follow, every act of service you perform, every time you let go and obey, you are becoming more of who you are meant to be. More obedient, more fulfilled, more complete. You are becoming your true self. And it feels so good. Obedience equals pleasure.